Hello everyone, Pedro here with CineMilled. Really excited to be here with you guys today, talking about one of my favorite subjects, camera operating, and the fact that we are now selling the One Alpha Tools Alpha Wheels on our website. And you know, we don't carry that many products we don't make on our website, but when they are so vital and so good, that I feel like it would add to any gimbal tech or gimbal operator, I certainly do my best to be able to bring those to my customers and to you guys that follow me. And the guys from One Alpha Tools have had this product out for a while. They have a new update which is the Alpha Link, and that really changes the game. There are a lot of other electronic wheel control systems in the market, maybe 2 or 3 other ones, and they mostly all use a Futaba or a Spectrum RC controller receiver on the gimbal, and you'll see an actual RC controller plugged into the device. And this is also how one of the ways you can use the Alpha wheels. But they have a new development, which is the Alpha Link, which this is the big game changer on all this. So this is a digital communication device. So the big difference this makes is, we're going to get into it in a second, the technical reason, but basically it provides you a much more accurate one-to-one movement of the gimbal to the wheels. And so we're really excited to be able to offer this. And you know, one of the things that I'm doing this video for is to sort of inform, you know, a lot of you guys out there that may not be so familiar with gear heads and these remote control systems like the wheels, because it does offer very specific advantages for camera operation. So I want to get into it real quick, a little bit, sort of give you guys an overview, a few key points on why wheels are so good, and you see them on big movie sets and stuff like that. But let's talk a little bit about that, on why you would want to buy wheels to control your gimbal. The first reason is, you may be a gimbal tech, you may not be the one operating the gimbal, and maybe you're familiar with the sticks, but the person that you're going to be working for may ask for or require wheels. And you know, so why are wheels so good? Why do some people want them so bad and demand them on sets? And so this is a very old gear head. It's what I learned how to operate on. And it's a whirl head from the 50s, and I got an old Aries 16BL here from the 60s. But that is to say, a gear head has gears. You can change the gears. There you see it moving slowly. If I change it into second gear, it moves much faster. And then there's a neutral switch. So that's relevant because the new Alpha Link has a speed knob, which is in a very similar way. It's kind of like changing the gears on the gear head. For any given number of rotation, you get more movement out of the gimbal. So it's kind of like changing gears. And before, they didn't have this. So this is kind of a really big deal now. You can, on the fly, you can increase your pan speed or your tilt speed. So going back to the good old gear head here, you know, one of the big reasons why operators really like gear heads is sort of repeatability and accuracy. And then some people speak a lot about finesse also. Now, speaking specifically to repeatability and accuracy, a really quick and easy example that maybe you guys could visualize is, if there's 2 actors and they're having an argument at a dinner table, and they're sitting down, and then they're going to stand up really close, really fast, and you're on a tight lens. With a tripod head, a fluid head, right, with a regular sort of head where you can adjust the tension and stuff, frequently what will happen on a scene like that is you'll overshoot, and you'll need another take, or they'll use it and there'll be that little correction at the end. Or also, of course, like maybe something falling and then you have to follow it, right? And so you don't want to follow it and then pass it and have that bump at the end. So in that case, you know, the actor's sitting down and then he stands up. So, you know, some people used to say, oh, you can count your moves. But basically, you know, if you put the gear head into neutral, you can put the knob at a specific point. So I put it at the 12 o'clock position, and You know, if I did that with the one back here, so I know that one rotation means that's his starting point, and when he stands up, it's one rotation over here. So every time I can end up on the perfect end frame, because no matter how fast or how slow I move it, it always ends up in the same exact point. So if you're trying to pan and stop the pan before you see a light or a C-stand, or maybe you see off the set, it's crucial, because you can develop a muscle memory and know exactly where to stop in the circle, that where you're going to miss, you're not going to catch the C-stand, and you don't even have to pay attention to it on your monitor when you're operating. You could pay attention to other things, the pacing of the actor, and you're not having to look at the edge of frame that, oh, I might catch the C-stand. As long as you go to the same spot, you're not going to catch it. So it's infinitely repeatable, you know, so everywhere you go, you land on the same spot. So the other reason why operators really like gearheads is sort of, let's say there's a very fast dolly move and they have to hit the brakes really hard at the end of the dolly move. Normally, when they start the dolly move, your body moves back, and if you have your hand on the panhandle, you're going to tilt up a little bit. And the same thing when they hit the brakes, you're gonna dip down a little bit. Even subconsciously, you think you're not going to do it, you're going to try not to do it, it's going to happen. Now, some operators are really good about locking the head when in the beginning of the move and then hitting, you know, unlocking it, but that can cause some movement. So the good thing about the gearhead is, it doesn't matter, you know, how fast the dolly's moving or whatever you're on is moving, the wheels stay stationary. They're not affected by the mass of the movement. So you can have a very good start and a very good end with no mistakes. And, you know, lastly, you know, the last point I'm going to make about the gearhead here is just the amount of finesse that you can have. It's really up to your experience and your control, you know, in the moves, how much finesse you can have. You know, they can be very fast also, although obviously they're not the best for super high speed moves. That's what a fluid head is good for. You know, some people will spin the wheels like that in order to get a faster move. But in any case, that sort of covers some of the really big points that people like gearheads for. And when it comes to operating remote heads, it's kind of very similar points. You know, you can count out your move, you can build a muscle memory, and if you're, and mostly also, you know, on more professional sets, the operators will have been using gearheads all their lives. And when you hand them a gimbal that's on the end of a crane, it's going to feel just like their gearhead. It's not like handing them some sticks and they have to figure out how to use this. The other talking point about the RC sticks, the control system, is that, and it goes back to what I touched on earlier about the Alpha Link. The RC control system is an analog communication system. So the result of that is that, if you can imagine the little control stick, so when you push down on it, left or right, the speed at which you move the stick affects how much the camera moves. So it's not a one-to-one system. So let's say the stick is straight up and down and I move it to a 45-degree angle, but I do it slowly, the camera is only going to move a little bit. Now, I might end up at the same 45-degree angle, but I do it really quick, the camera is going to move 180 degrees. So this is a feature in RC controllers we call expo or exponential, because whatever you're controlling exponentially moves more the faster you move the stick. So for RC airplanes, for example, this is something on the more high-end controllers you can change. There's a curve, right? So you can change how much it exponentially changes the input. So obviously, when it comes to camera operating, that's not a good thing, because it doesn't do what I just explained about sort of repeating the move. So there it is. See, I ended up straight up and the camera's pointing straight at you. So I didn't even have to think about that, and it ended up in the right spot. So If they had Expo built into this, if I did this really quick, it would move more. So I wouldn't be able to rely on that movement. I wouldn't be able to build a muscle memory. You know, if you have a blocking rehearsal with the actors, you can kind of know where they're going to stop, right? And so you know, and then if all of a sudden there's an expo and then the actor moves faster, you're not going to end up in the same place. So repeatability with an analog system goes away because there's this change in dynamics on how it moves faster. If you move the stick, it moves further if you move the stick faster. So that gives you a quick overview of why you would want to use wheels as a control device to operate a camera. And it's just a quick overview, and it's maybe something we'll get into more in depth in future videos. But so let's say you're getting ready to purchase your Alpha wheels on our website. You'll see a number of options. So the first option, and the most important that I should talk about and explain so that you can make a proper purchase, is the communication system, the way you're going to communicate and control the gimbal. So there's a few different ways you could do this. So number one, you can use a RC controller, either a Futaba or a Spectrum. And the downside is you have to buy the controller. They're not cheap, especially the better ones. They're like $500–600. They can go all the way up to $1,000. And then they use an analog rate to control the camera. And the downside, like I explained before, is that exponential response curve to the speed of your input. So it's not something that's really desirable. You can't get repeatable moves out of it. So it makes the system inconsistent, which is actually the reverse of what you want out of a gearhead. You want it to be repeatable and more like a traditional mechanical gearhead. So it's not ideal, but it is possible. All you got to do is select the proper cable, a Futaba cable or a Spectrum cable. Those are options on the website. The other way is using a FreeFly MoVI controller. So the MoVI controller is this big device. It's like $3,000 something, and it does talk digitally, so that's a plus. You just use a LEMO cable that comes with that you'll buy, and when you buy the MoVI controller cable, it'll come with this mounting bracket right here, and you mount that here, and then the MoVI controller goes right on top. And so you're using the MoVI controller to wirelessly talk to a MoVI. So the downside, of course, of that system is cost. The MoVI controller is $3,000. And the other downside is that all you can do is control a MoVI. And you know, if you're a gimbal tech, if you're a gimbal operator, you know, personally, I own a MoVI, I own a Ronin, I even own a Tilta, and you know, I may be on one job or another job the next day. As a gimbal tech, I want to be able, especially with a big purchase like this, I want to be able to control as many devices, brands of devices as possible. So using a MoVI controller, besides being cost ineffective, to me is limiting, because then I can't talk to other brands of gimbals, and I think that's something that most people would want to do. So I don't really recommend that. I don't recommend the RC controllers because, once again, they're analog. So those are the first two options. So the new option is using the new Alpha Link. So obviously the advantage of the Alpha Link is price. There's 3 different versions. They have 3 different price points, of course, which each version. And the benefit of all of them is that you get a one-to-one response because it's a digital communication. And you get some controls and some features we're going to get into. So what is the difference between the 3 systems? And so I'm just going to look at some notes here. So so the first one is the Alpha Link Mimic version. So the Alpha Link Mimic version is $400, and so it's the least expensive model. And what it's doing is it doesn't have all the internal boards. It doesn't have an antenna, because it's not, the Alpha Link isn't really communicating with your MoVI. It's just sort of in between. It's like a translator. The Mimic is actually talking wirelessly to your MoVI and controlling the MoVI. So it's using the Mimic to control the MoVI. And so since the Mimic is doing the wireless stuff, That's why it's cheaper, because there isn't all the wireless technology inside of the Alpha Link to do that communication. So the advantage is price, so it's $400 cheaper. The disadvantage is that it's self-powered, so it lasts as long as the Mimic battery lasts, which is about 4 hours. And you know, it's the cheapest option, but it's limiting in the fact that, like using the MoVi controller, you can only control a MoVi device. The range is also not fantastic. It's not as good as the Alpha Link XR. So the next step up is the Alpha Link S.Bus. So the Alpha Link S.Bus is cheaper than the XR. It has, because you know, but it still has a transmitter. It's about a 600-foot range. So it's, you know, a pretty good transmitter. It's limited in range, right? And what you need to do is there's a receiver that plugs into the gimbal, and that's what makes the communication. And so it consists of 2 pieces. And basically, it's exactly like the XR I have right here, except it has limited range. So the third version is the Alpha Link XR. And the Alpha Link XR is the cream of the crop. It's, I think, somewhere around $800, which is not too much when you consider the options. Remember, Movi Controller, $3,000. RC Controller, anywhere from $5,000 to $1,000. And then you have all the downsides of the analog communication. So the main benefit, the 2 main benefits of the Alpha Link XR is the range, which is somewhere around 1,600 feet. Which is, you know, good. You could use it to do aerial work on drones. And the other thing is basically the fact that either with the XR or the S.Bus, you can control, at the moment, you can control Ronin, you can control Tilta, and you can control MoVI. So with one device, you can control 3 different brands of gimbals. So this is why, you know, my personal recommendation to you is that, of course, you know, everyone has different financial situations, but I would go for the Alpha Link XR. I mean, why? When it comes to things that are wireless, I want the most power possible. You know, when we were shooting the launch video for the Ronin 2, the Legacy, if you search for it on YouTube, we were on a cable cam, and then we went off the cable cam, and we went inside of a house, and then we went outside of the house onto a vehicle, down a road, and it was all controlled with the Alpha wheels and with the Alpha Link XR. And so, you know, when it comes to being on a professional set, I want to have the most power possible so I can get through walls, so I can do cable cam work, so I can put it on a drone. I don't want to limit myself. And the difference in price is just a couple $100, and then you add on top of that the fact that you can control 3 different brands of gimbals. You can do MoVis, you can do Ronins, you can do Tiltas. To me, it's a no-brainer. I would say the only one I would consider is the XR model, for those very sane reasons of having more range, more transmitting power, essentially more range, and the fact that you control many gimbals. So the other options, so that sort of wraps up the options of the Link control. The other options when you buy the Alpha wheels is the wheels themselves. Currently, there's just 2 options. There's the aluminum ones, which are these right here, and there's ones made out of brass that they make out of brass. The brass ones are just heavier. They have a little bit more mass. They feel a little bit more like a traditional gearhead. They have a little bit of an inertia, so because you know, like a flywheel on an engine, which the mass helps to sort of continue the motion. So some people feel like the extra mass sort of helps you feather off moves a little bit better. So some people might want to go for the brass wheels. So that's one option. The other option is the stand that you see here. We're going to offer this as a new product here. This is a tie-down 3/8 tie-down screw and a Mitchell washer is what we call it. And you can use that over here, for example, to attach it to any sort of Mitchell tripod base. This is drilled out on the bottom as well, so that you can connect to, maybe you have a bowl adapter or whatever. And of course, as far as when it comes to the wheels, the orientation of the wheels, some people operate like this. Personally, I like them just like I have my gear head at a 90-degree angle. So simply just rotate it and angle it to whatever direction you want. And of course, the other big advantage of the Alpha Link is the fact that you have these external knobs right here. And the external knobs offer a very important feature, which is you can control speed of the motors. So, maybe you did one take and you thought they were going to move a certain speed and now they're moving faster, and you want to be able to pan quicker without having to move your hand so fast. You can quickly just reach up, turn the knob, and then increase your pan speed. So that's a really vital move, something that the more high-end electronic remote gearheads have. The other thing is, if you go past the center right there, it reverses the direction that the wheels go. So normally this is down, that's up. This is left, that's right? This is the traditional direction of the gearhead, classic style. So why would you want to reverse that? So really simple. On a gimbal, if you remember, you can go underslung or you can go overslung. When you go overslung, left is now right and up is now down, everything reverses. So if really quickly, if they oversling the gimbal, all you got to do is turn a knob, and now this is still down and this is still up. So you can reverse the directions. Of course, with most gimbals, you can take out your iPhone and change the direction that it's moving, but it's so much easier just to be able to reach up, turn a knob, not have to ask the AC to pull out his iPhone and connect via Bluetooth, so on and so forth. So that is a really cool feature, something that's not found in some of the other wheels out there. But before I go and get into showing you how it works we have a Ronin 2 here, and I'm also going to plug it into my Ronin 1. My MoVI is out on rental today, so I can't show you that, but it works just fine on the MoVI. Of course, the first gimbals these were used on were MoVIs. They worked with FreeFly quite closely to get these wheels working and talking to their gimbals. But I'm going to show you a little bit about that. But basically, that's the system. You'll see all the pricing on our website. Availability, sometimes there's a little bit of a lead time. They don't make these in very large numbers, but it shouldn't take more than a few weeks. But mostly they're available now, and I can't highly recommend it. I have recently used this on a commercial, and I'm super excited about it. I'm going to do a lot more testing and a lot more videos for you guys going into the wheels. I'm going to use the wheels to sort of test out the motors on I'm going to do some reviews on the Ronin 2 and maybe even compare them with the MoVI, and I'm looking forward to using the Alpha wheels a lot more and showing you guys how great they can be, giving you guys a couple of tech tips on them if you do own them, and be able to do a lot more in the future with them. So anyways, I'm going to get this dinosaur out of here, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the wheels working and how you connect it to the Ronin 2, and let's get to it. All right. Okay. So here we have the new Ronin 2. Whoops. So we have the new Ronin 2, and let me turn this here, and we'll do a close-up. What we have here on the back is the Alpha Link receiver, and it simply plugs into the communication port right there, and that's it. That's all you need to do. And as soon as you power on the wheels, and the wheels can be, let me move this over a little bit. The wheels can be powered a few different ways. There's a, was it 2-pin LEMO? So you can use a 2-pin LEMO power cable. In my case, I'm using a camera battery, an Anton Barra battery, with a battery plate and a D-tap to a USB cable. So there's also a USB port on the back, which is power in. Also, you can use USB power input. So I'm just using a battery plate and a USB cable through the D-tap. And that's how I'm getting this to be powered. So it's pretty simple. As soon as you turn it on, it already connects. And you can see here, it's now controlling the Ronin, right? And so notice it's not moving super fast. Obviously, it's way smooth and controlled. So I can increase the speed through here, through the knob, and you can see it moves a little bit faster. And the other thing, although the speed here, they are working on the software to be able to control a much larger sort of window of speed, I guess you could say. Right now, this is also a beta software for the Ronin 2, so there's a lot of things changing. But ideally, you can still change. You go into the remote menu on the Ronin 2, and you go to, you know, the pan menu here, and then you increase the speed, which I'm doing right now, and now you get a much faster speed. So look at that. That's super fast. So that's great, right? So one of the changes there, that's speed. So that's like changing the gear on the gear head like I showed you earlier. So with 2 revolutions, I can get a full tilt up to tilt down, right? There we go. We're looking straight down. So one of the things you'll notice is how responsive this Ronin 2 is. And part of that is the big motors it has. The other part is the software. It's much improved, and it's also improved to work with devices like the Alpha wheels. So one of the other settings you can change, and you should change and adjust, is the smoothing. The smoothing is essentially when you stop a move, how hard it stops. You can even see a little bit of a you know, because it hit the brakes so hard, it's a little bit of a bounce because it's hitting the brakes so hard. That's, the motor is really powerful on the Ronin, so you really have to play with the smoothing. So if I turn down the smoothing like I just did right now, it should, let's see here, let me turn it down a little bit more, and there you go. So it's hitting the brakes much more suavely, and it's not just stomping on the brakes. So that's something you wanna adjust depending on the shot you're doing, and of course you can do that via the touch screen here on the back, and you could do the same thing with the MoVI Pro, for example. But that's how you would adjust speed. Obviously, like I said, you can adjust speed on the knob here also. It just controls a certain range of, like a window of the speed. If you need more change than what's available to do on the knob, then you need to go into the controller, into the software for the gimbal. So, but there you have it. That's pan and tilt. Obviously, I have things turned up way high, but you can see here how responsive it is. The other thing, of course, which is what I was talking about earlier, is repeatability, right? The fact that this is 1-to-1. So what I'm going to do a test in the future, it's not going to be part of this video. I'm going to put crosshairs on the walls, and I'm going to do, you know, like a full rotation and show that it's always moving to the same spot. It's having an accurate movement, and you can see here right now it always ends up looking straight. So what you're going to notice, especially if you put your hand on it and you move the wheel at the same time, and that's one thing I always tell people to do, and it's the easiest way to sort of feel how direct the control is. I mean, they really now have this to a point. I mean, that was the biggest complaint before, is that you would move the wheel and the gimbal would move a little bit and maybe like drift towards a stop, like the smoothing. They had too much smoothing built in. And so one of the things the engineers have worked on and improved is made it so that, you know, zero smoothing is really zero, like it just stops, right? And, you know, you see that, like it really stops. And so I always tell people, put your hand on it and then pan it, and you're really gonna see like how direct it is. I mean, it's to a point now where it's almost like a fluid head, like a tripod. Like it's a direct, you have direct control. So anyways, they're working really great, and you know, you just have to learn how to use them, and it's not easy. You know, people spend a long time practicing, and I always tell people, you know, this was always the big conundrum before, is that it was really hard to get your hands on a gearhead, because gearheads were, you know, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 for a mechanical gearhead like the one you saw here earlier. That used to cost a ton of money. It still costs a couple $1,000s. And then either that, or how are you gonna practice on a Scorpio head, or a head that you might find on a big techno crane? You know, you better have some nice friends. So the nice thing about the Alpha Tools, Alpha Link, and the Alpha Wheels, is that it integrates with Sena Designer. So Sena Designer, for those of you that are not aware of what Sena Designer is a software, like a previs software for cinematographers. So you can, you know, read your script and essentially build out the scene just like someone would previs a scene for a big, for maybe a stunt sequence or something. But in this case, it's a software design so you can previs your lighting as a cinematographer. So he has all the lighting implements pre-modeled, and you can place lights, figure out how many lights you're going to need to order for your project, and so on and so forth. Plan better, shoot better, like Matt always says. And so the nice thing about the Alpha Wheels is that you can actually plug them into your computer. You can design a scene in the Sena Designer software, and you can move actors, and you could change your lens size, and actually practice with these same wheels on your computer at home on your screen. And it'll be like you're operating it, it'll be like you have your eye in the viewfinder, and you can practice at home so that you can get good at them before you ever step on a set. Now, of course, that'll require you to purchase Sena Designer or find a good friend that maybe already has it. But it's a great piece of software that could be very useful to you for a lot of other, you know, the main reasons it was created, of course, so you can plan your lighting for your shoot, and experiment, and of course, with the help of the Alpha Tools, learn how to operate better. So it's a great thing. I mean, being able to just purchase the wheels for the price that they are, and get your hands on Sena Designer and practice, is invaluable. I mean, for me to learn the wheels, I had to buy a gearhead. And before, you used to go to like maybe a rental house and beg and plead for them to let you play with it. In the past, obviously, as a AC going up, you would sit on, you know, whenever they were at lunch, you would sit on the gearhead and practice and hope you got good at it fairly quick. So it's amazing that, you know, I know for some of you, $2,300 sounds like a lot of money, but being able to spend that money, use it as a tool for you to learn how to operate wheels, have the wheels, being able to use them on your gimbals, is a really fantastic thing. Which brings me to my last point. Now that since I have the Ronin 2 here, and I have it turned down, that's why it didn't respond so fast. So you see it here connected to the communications port. So conversely, this is the same communication port that's on an Inspire drone, a DJI Inspire drone. So we have recently heard of somebody using the wheels to control the camera on a DJI Inspire drone. So this is obviously something, when I heard about it, I was really excited about. I think you should be too. It's a fantastic way to get shots. And not to mention, the only way to use a second operator on an Inspire is to buy a second remote control, a DJI Inspire remote, which is not cheap. So if you already buying the wheels to operate your Ronin 2 or your regular Ronin or your MoVI, now that you'll be able to maybe even control an Inspire camera, that's really a cool thing. Obviously, that's something I need to explore a little bit further. Maybe we'll do another video about if we get that to work. But theoretically, there should be no reason why it wouldn't work. Look out for that. Follow us on Instagram and you'll see more about it. That gives you an overview of why you would want to use wheels, gives you an overview of how to order the different options on the Alpha wheels. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on the video below. We do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. Definitely follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We're always posting sort of the latest product, new products that we're doing. We're always sharing things that our customers are doing. Might give you good ideas on how to do things on your next shoot. And we're always posting also the new videos that we're making. And I do plan on releasing a lot of videos around the Alpha wheels, a little bit sort of like tips. And also I'm going to use it to test the new Ronin. I'm going to use it to sort of compare a few things, and look forward to doing that. And thanks for supporting us, and I hope you enjoyed the video and you got something out of this, and I'll see you in the next one.